Okay guys, so today we're reacting to how good was Girintina actually. Here we go. Okay, let's do this. Now all I have to do is click play. Fizzing.
Next up, we have Diabolus in Pokemon, Giratina, master of Sinnoh's creation trio, and embodiment of antimatter. This multi-formed draconic phantom has terrorized fans ever since the 4th generation. From Turnback Cave in Diamond and Pearl to the Distortion World in Platinum that Giratina was the mascot of, it has always exuded an aura of menace. It did...
Wow, I do not lie, Giratina is one of my favorite Pokemon. The only one... he's one of my favorite legendaries. Only behind Groudon, he's probably one of my favorite Pokemon. So, yeah, I like Giratina a lot. Let's get back into the video.
Go in its own movie as well as the follow-up film. But in our opinion, there are few images more blood-curdling than Giratina dragging Cyrus to the Distortion World in the Pokemon Generations episode, The New World. Today we'll see if Giratina was as demonic in the competitive scene. So, how good was Giratina actually? We'll be going over these competitive...
Wait a minute, why was Giratina breathing flame? Why was Giratina using flamethrower? I don't get that.
Formats. Giratina's absolutely colossal bulk and ghost typing made it a fixture on DPP Uber's stalled New World. Today we'll see if Giratina was as demonic in the
here's the part I was talking about with him using flamethrower. Why does he do this?
Competitive scene. So, how good was Giratina actually? And in this video we'll be going over these competitive formats. Giratina's absolutely colossal bulk and ghost typing made it a fixture on DPP Uber's stall team.
Yeah, I've been using Giratina in one of my Pokemon Go accounts, and it was really good. So, yeah, I also got Darkrai and Ash Pikachu, so from the world. I still haven't got Lugia yet, but I'm planning on getting one. Okay, I'm planning on getting a Lugia sometime, but I need to have some remote rig passes. So let's try. Okay, let's back to the video.
It was referred to as one of the 2 great walls of Ubers due to how ridiculously difficult it is to KO it with max HP, max defense.
Wow, I never knew Giratina was that strong.
And a set of Will-O-Wisp, Roar, Rest, and Sleep Talk, it consistently staved off some of the tears.
What? No, I'm making a video. Alright, sorry guys. So, we're reacting to this, and yeah. So, I can't wait to use Giratina I'm sorry, not Pokemon Go. Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. Because I've been trying to desperately get one, still haven't found one yet. Or still haven't got one yet. My shiny Giratina won't be too bad from Dynamax Adventures either. If she's from Zorangel.
Biggest threats with ease, notably Groudon and Lucario, worn down further. But that was reserved for the other great wall of Dragon-type offense, but those dragons did not enjoy switching into Will-O-Wisp.
Okay, so, yeah, Groudon was in the video. I don't know if I should do a live stream, but I'm just gonna make a video. But still, this is a freaking video of I'm reacting to the how good was Giratina actually. And next up, I'm gonna react to this one, the history of Groudon. How good was Groudon actually, but still. Let's get back into the video. That's good.
And getting worn down further. But Giratina's job wasn't to handle the dragons anyway. That was reserved for the other great wall of Ubers, Lugia. Both of them having pressure to drain the low PP moves like Draco Meteor meant Dragons' health wasn't the only thing on a timer.
I was just talking about Lugia.
corner, especially since if push came to shove, Giratina was more than capable of swallowing an attack and wresting the damage off. Giratina's pressure was also immensely useful in helping drain the terrifying Kyogre's water spout. Giratina's main issue was a severe lack of offensive pressure and a major weakness to spikes. Even if it blocked Fortress's spin, Fortress would simply litter the field with spikes, and that severely hampered Giratina's survivability. This, in addition to its slow pace, meant that Giratina was mainly relegated to use on stall teams, which could use its own Fortress to level the playing field. Giratina wasn't completely hapless though. It could use a calm mindset and sweep opposing stall teams once its teammates went down, and they could no longer phase Giratina out. It would also leave Fortress and Lugia with crippling burns in the meantime. It got by just fine with Mono Dragon coverage, given the move's one resistance and a lack of immunities. Against offensive teams, it could set up against Stealth Rock Groudon and was insanely difficult to overpower, given how most Dragon moves and Ubers were special, as were Ice Beams from Kyogre and Mewtwo, and Dark Pulse from Darkrai. As such, it wasn't uncommon for Giratina to end up sweeping. Plus, now that it was packing Dragon Pulse, with the exception of the Dragon neutral Dialga, the Dragons wouldn't be able to switch in to threaten Giratina out. Not even if Giratina was asleep if it chose to run Sleep Talk over Will-O-Wisp. It wasn't as consistently effective at stopping Groudon and Lucario without Will-O-Wisp, but its partner Lugia using Reflect would ameliorate these issues, and the upside was potentially winning certain games on the spot with Giratina. Platinum came and turned the metagame on its head by introducing Giratina's origin form, which was an absolutely incredible Pokemon. Its biggest boon over regular Giratina, which became known as the altered form, was Levitate. This meant it didn't care about spikes or toxic spikes whatsoever. Not having to worry about getting worn down so quickly, and thus being unable to block spin or check a threat, was absolutely amazing. The Earthquake immunity to help with Groudon as well as Choice Garchomp was also highly useful. Origin's defensive and offensive stats were also the inverse of Alter's, though Origin's defenses were noticeably lower and it could not hold leftovers thanks to the required Grisius Orb. It was more than bulky enough to take several resisted hits from the likes of Groudon, Kyogre, Dialga, and Palkia, as well as not needing to be in utterly pristine shape to withstand one strong super effective hit. 100 defenses are more than adequate when packing an absolutely gargantuan 150 HP. However, Giratina O wasn't going to be focused on taking a lot of hits, apart from the Stray Fortress payback. It was mostly going to be focused on using that Grisius Orb's boost to its stats and its meaty offensive stats to dish out those hits itself. Those offensive stats meant Giratina O could now make better use of its base 90 speed, which was the defining benchmark in Ubers, and as such Giratina O was regularly involved in speed creep wars with Groudon, Kyogre, and Dialga, all looking to get an edge on each other. Sometimes it even ran a plus speed nature to get the jump on Lucario. Being such an effective abuser of the spikes it was protecting meant Giratina O was excellent at procuring and maintaining offensive pressure and general momentum, and as such it fit on both Deoxys speed-led heavy offense teams, Skarmory balanced teams, and Fortress-anchored hard stall teams alike. In the Platinum metagame, it usually used a substitute calm mindset that dominated Blissey and severely threatened stall, given how it could punish any phasing attempts from Lugia with a
Put your money to work with trading 2-on-2. Buy stocks with zero commission and zero fees.
It's been almost 24 years since its release. Back in the day, the game was all the craze.
brutal Shadow Ball. However, it could also use a mix set that was more immediately threatening, with powerful Draco Meters and Outrages to hit both physical and special walls, as well as hidden power Fire or Thunder to threaten Fortress, depending on if it had Groudon or Kyogre on its team. The instant power of Draco Meter was especially crucial for making Giratina an effective check to Rock Polish Groudon that threatened it with Dragon Claw. Then, upon the release of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Giratina received Shadow Sneak, and this turned it into a truly elite Pokemon. Its mix set was now far and away the preferred variant, as it had terrific utility with its powerful priority that kept dangerous threats like Mewtwo and the Lati Twins in check, while being able to pick off anything weakened, such as a boosted Rayquaza, whose extreme speed it was immune to, and being able to finish off a bulky Rock Polish Groudon that might have survived Draco Meteor. Shadow Sneak's priority was generally crucial in nearly every game for containing fast threats in a metagame that values speed as highly as DPP Ubers, especially when Giratina O was anchoring slower, more balanced and defensive teams. It was even able to function as a terrific lead thanks to its ability to limit Deoxys' speed to one layer of hazards via priority picking it off after it had been brought down to its focus sash. It could pull similar tricks against Deoxys' attack and Frostlass, while also pressuring Groudon at Fortress lead. Overall, Giratina Origin did it all and was one of the best Pokemon in the metagame that fit on absolutely every team. And while the Origin form took most of the spotlight as it came to define the metagame, Giratina Altered still had some use outside of the most hardcore stall teams, with the Substitute Protect set aimed at abusing the low PP of the moves like Draco Meteor and Spatial Rend that threatened it with pressure. It wasn't anywhere near as efficient as a wall, but it absolutely dominated most offensive teams once it got that sub, such as against the Groudon afraid of Will-O-Wisp or against a choice move of a type Giratina resisted, most commonly water or electric, but it could even set up against Garchomp Earthquake, and it made Choice Band Scissor regret going for superpower like nothing else. Some players even used Scarf Giratina, and other than being granted some KOs against Pokemon like Garchomp and Latios through sheer surprise factor, being able to compress the role of Spin Blocker and fast Pokemon that check threats like Swords Dance, Lucario, and Rayquaza was valuable for certain teams, though it was of course on the gimmicky side. Overall, while Origin had the much bigger impact, both forms of Giratina were immeasurably important additions to the Uber metagame and defined much of the tier throughout the generation. As a restricted Pokemon, Giratina has had very limited periods when it's available in VGC, and even when it is allowed, it had incredibly stiff competition for the 2 restricted slots. And honestly, when you're going up against Dialga's incredible typing, Palkia's offensive prowess, or the incredible game-changing abilities of the Weather Trio, Giratina doesn't have much to offer. Nevertheless, the Renegade Pokemon has managed to sneak its way into a few notable performances over the years through its unique ghostly traits. Danny TTS Zollner made a Giratina Palkia team work to win the Newark VGC's senior tournament and place top 10 at US Nationals, and former Smogan administrator Scarm used the same team to place top 8 at Nats. TTS explains Giratina's use as primarily coming from its ghost typing, most notably to protect against the rapid explosions that were constantly going off before the move's nerf. His offensive Giratina held a Yacht Berry to live through the chills of opposing Abomasnows and Mewtwo's, and had a moveset of Shadow Sneak for priority and outplaying Sucker Punch, Dragon Claw to hit the large amount of opposing Dragon types, and the standard Protect. But Giratina's true strength in VGC comes from its own ability to exploit just how standard Protect is via the use of its signature Shadow Force. Giratina forces opponents to think twice about protecting, as it possesses the unique ability to bust through protection with a monstrously powerful move. This mind game allows Giratina to both deal incredible damage on its own and enable its teammates who would rather get around Protects, namely Explosion Metagross, who is an absolutely perfect partner to Giratina. They get to attack together, and Giratina doesn't even have to protect to avoid damage from its partner. In general, Shadow Force was such a powerful move in its own right that switching to Origin form wasn't necessary, and Giratina thus was mostly seen in its altered form. Giratina's best performance in 2010, however, came with a different set of teammates. Ryan Deagle Beagle Chambers managed to make top 8 at Worlds with a squad consisting of Ludicolo, Mewtwo, Toxicroak, Ho-Oh, Palkia, and Giratina. What you have to keep in mind is that the lack of team preview in 2010 meant quite a few players brought more than just 2 restricted Pokemon, pivoting them in as appropriate to deal with opposing threats. In this case, Chambers says his Giratina was actually pretty much dead weight. He slapped it on his team last minute and barely ever used it. He says he'd rather have had a 3rd unrestricted mon to make his team less predictable. Nevertheless, this Giratina made use of one of the only unique things Giratina had going for it other than Shadow Force, Tailwind. An incredibly useful move that still didn't make Giratina worth ringing over Chambers' Ho-Oh, Mewtwo, or Palkia. And other than that, Giratina didn't see much play. Although future 2015 world champions Shoma, Shade Vera, Honami used it on quite a few of his very first teams when he started out. So there's that. The importance of hazards and spin blocking increasing in Generation 5, with the immensely important durable Ferrothorn spiking all over the place, Tentacruel and Excadrill rising as effective spinners, the former of which also set up toxic spikes, and the addition of the Arceus forms, the Ghost variant of which was also a new spin blocker and tremendous Calm Mind Sweeper. Altered Giratina found use on the most hardcore stall teams, with its physically defensive variant being able to block even the mighty Swords Dance Excadrill spin. It was also one of the few Pokemon able to stand up to the famed Extreme Killer, and countering the terrifying new Blaziken was also valuable. Some sand teams use specially defensive Giratina alongside Pursuit Tyranitar to handle Kyogre, with their own Excadrill being able to relieve hazard pressure on Giratina, potentially with help from Tyranitar's Pursuit against opposing spin blockers. Being able to better sponge hits from Calm Mind fighting Arceus was also useful given how troublesome it usually was to send teams. However, Origin Giratina's Levitate was still the preferred method of dealing with spikes and toxic spikes while blocking spin.
I'm working on a new skill.
Okay, there's
Oh,
another.
come on, let's see it.
Think fast.
Yeah, honey needs work.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Upgrade your champions and...
Given how often the field was littered with them as a result of spinning being so difficult, and thus severely hampered both Altered Giratina's and Ghost Arceus' effectiveness. It mostly used the mixed set from the previous generation, but once Black and White 2 came around, the Shuffler variant took over once it was discovered that the new Dragon Tail had immense utility in forcing spikes on the opponent while still dishing out good damage itself. It had great synergy with Shadow Sneak, which would pick off the Pokemon weakened by the Shuffling with ease. Both moves were of course boosted by Grisius Orb, making this strategy even more powerful, as did the protection offered by Substitute against Ferrothorn's Leech Seed and Fortress's Toxic, it usually racking up even more residual damage with Will-O-Wisp for even easier Shadow Sneak pickings. Giratina O could also opt for Magic Coat instead of Substitute. It was mostly useful for completely dominating Deoxys speed leads, but could also bounce spikes from Ferrothorn, Fortress, or Skarmory back at them, while even potentially turning the tables on Darkrai. This variant of the Shuffler was quite strong and a go-to for offensive teams, given its ability to consistently spread damage on several members of the opponent's team, a rare trait, while being able to check several dangerous Pokemon. However, it tended to get worn down while doing its job, best exemplified by the risky yet necessary maneuver of switching into Tentacruel and chancing a Scald Burn. Groudon beginning to use Lava Plume could be troublesome as well. Thus, a rest-talking Shuffler emerged, which kept the core efficiency of Giratina O as a phaser, but meant it could get its hands dirty, so to speak, not having to tiptoe around status, not getting shipped uncomfortably by repeated switches into Stealth Rock, and actually being able to use its bulk to take hits. The last move could still be Shadow Sneak. It was the most synergistic option for when Giratina O was awake, allowing it to enact its shuffle and priority strategy as it normally would, but with the luxury of being a bit more cavalier with its health, as it could rest if needed. However, some players who found their Giratina O to be sleeping often used Roar in the last slot to give themselves the 66% chance of shuffling, which could be effective as phasing moves did not go last if called by Sleep Talk, and gave Giratina O good odds to phase Extreme Killer even if asleep. Roar was also effective at blowing away the dangerous Substitute Ho-Oh. Regardless of the specifics of the set, Shuffler Giratina O was a consistent game-to-game performer that rarely struck the winning blow itself, but was invaluable in getting its team into a position to strike that blow in the first place. Overall, Origin Giratina was once again a crucial component of the Uber metagame. Altered Giratina was much more niche, but it fulfilled certain specific important defensive requirements and thus enabled powerful builds that would fall apart without it. Gen 6 was quite a different look for Origin Giratina. It went from protecting and abusing hazards to removing them with the newly buffed Defog. Xerneas was the biggest threat in the tier, which led to a lot of Klefki to counter it, which led to a lot of spikes being laid, and a Defogger that hovered above them was invaluable. The difference between Giratina O and the Laddie twins in this department is that Giratina O didn't rely on its speed at all, investing entirely in defense and either attack or special attack, meaning it wasn't nearly as crippled by a potential Klefki Thunderwave. And also that Klefki was not exactly a very good switch to Giratina O, given that it could be smacked by either Earthquake or Shadow Force from physical sets, the latter move being used to prevent Xerneas and setting up on it, while generally being powerful given Steel's nerf to no longer resist Ghost, or a combo of Thunderwave and Hex from special sets. T-Wave also severely crippled Arceus forms, and Veltal, who thought Giratina O couldn't threaten them much. Finally, Giratina O could escape from Mega Gengar's Shadow Tag by virtue of its Ghost typing. Giratina O taking on this less aggressive, more defensive support role was also seen in the importance of its defensive niche, notably being able to go toe-to-toe with the king of the tier, the mighty Primal Groudon, checking offensive sets and defogging against support sets. It was also able to stomach a hit and retaliate against Extreme Killer, and staved off other major threats in Mega Mewtwo X, Mega Kangaskhan, and Mega Blaziken. Finally, with the mind game of Thunderwave and Shadow Sneak alongside Defog, Giratina O once more posed a great threat to the success of Deoxys speed leads, which relied on quick, uncontested hazards to set the pace of the match, and Giratina O's ability to thwart that was also invaluable. It was not a particularly glorious niche, but it was a thoroughly which relied on quick, uncontested hazards to set the pace of the match, and Giratina O's ability to thwart that was also invaluable. It was not a particularly glorious niche, but it was a thoroughly important one, as Giratina O was consistently able to keep its team from crumbling in the face of hazards and some of the most powerful Pokemon in the game. It wouldn't do it forever, but being able to do it just once was immeasurably important. It was the backbone that protected its teams from danger and allowed them to fight. Altered Giratina was once more found on certain variants of Hardcore Stall, as it was was able to withstand hits from Choice Band Ho-Oh and normal ground and fighting Arceus, while being able to escape Mega Gengar Shadow Tag, unlike Lugia. It also handled a host of dangerous Megas, such as Salamence, Mewtwo X, Blaziken, and Kangaskhan. However, it was no longer a check to Groudon, whose half fire typing gained upon going primal made it immune to Will-O-Wisp. In general, Giratina's inability to do damage didn't do it any favors, especially when it was not exactly checking a majority of the metagame, given the popularity of Primal Groudon, Primal Kyogre, Xerneas, Veltal, and Ghost Arceus. Stall was fairly ineffective in general, wasn't used as much as a result, and wasn't always able to fit Giratina on the rare occasions it was used. This was specific enough to ensure Giratina Altered never saw a ton of usage, as it didn't fit other styles of team at all. It certainly had the defensive utilities an experienced player could use to plug holes in a certain squad, but it was quite niche overall. Giratina wouldn't have another chance to break into VGC until 2016, but its competition was even steeper this time around, with the introduction of the primal Pokemon Mega Rayquaza and Xerneas, who simply packed far more power than Giratina. While being able to break through Protect is still a nice gimmick in VGC, it's not quite worth sacrificing one of your restricted slots for, and Giratina's appearances were few and far between. Nevertheless, like a strange apparition from the Distortion world, it still managed to put together a few placements. And I apologize if I butcher any of your names. Hong Wei Lai brought it to 3rd place at Taiwan Regionals, and it had 2 showings in the Chile Regionals top 8, courtesy of Sebastian Lara and Ariel Romo. The new standard power in 2016 necessitated that V's Giratina be in origin form to avoid being dead weight, and even so, Giratina found a hard time keeping up in 2016.
Download a free audiobook with your 30-day trial.
Okay, just waiting until the sun's thing out.
When it's way past your pup's bedtime, but they don't seem to realize.
Origin Giratina was an excellent defogger and checked to Primal Groudon once more in Generation 7. The two attributes, of course, went hand in hand, and a similar dynamic applied to a new stealth rocker, the Ghost Weak Duskmane Necrozma. Overall, not changed in the way of Giratina O's role and how it functioned. It was basically the exact same Pokemon from the previous generation. The one notable difference was that it no longer had to be in pristine health to take a Dragon Dance Mega Salamence's Double Edge, given the Aerolate nerf. Overall, Giratina O was a solid, consistent Pokemon for bulky offense and balance teams that alleviated hazard pressure and was able to significantly threaten the dangerous Pokemon it checked. Altered Giratina was able to handle much more of the Gen 7 metagame and began providing defog for the stall teams it was on, which significantly improved their usability. With pressure, it could PP stall Stealth Rock, meaning that defog having less PP than rocks was no longer an issue. It was able to sit on support variants of Primal Groudon and Duskmane Necrozma, denying their rocks and thus a huge source of their offensive pressure. It also ran both Toxic and Will-O-Wisp, so it could cripple both of them as well as Mega Lucario, Ho-Oh, and Arceus normal and ground. However, it could also run Roar, allowing it to completely counter Zygarde complete and preventing substitute Calm Mind Primal Kyogre from getting too far. Not having Sleep Talk was unfortunate, but with and thus a huge source of their offense, allowing it to completely counter Zygarde complete and preventing substitute Calm Mind Primal Kyogre from getting too far. Not having Sleep Talk was unfortunate, but with Cleric support from fellow stall staple Blissey, it wasn't too much of a problem. Giratina didn't dominate the metagame in this role, but it was a significant part of it, as it was crucial to the function of many styles of stall and was overall a step up after the languishing of the previous generation. You may think that the increased power creep would only force Giratina even further from VGC, but the funky format of 2019, which had 3 different sets of rules, actually let Giratina make a few sparse appearances. Since Sun Series banned Z Crystals, and more notably, the Primals and Mega Rayquaza, Giratina could occasionally pop up as a partner to Xerneas, usually in its origin form. But it was still a lower-tiered restricted Pokemon in comparison to stronger picks, such as regular Kyogre, Yveltal, or Lunala, and failed to record any significant tourney placings. In fact, Giratina's one notable placement of VGC 2019 came in the Moon Series, which differed from Sun in its allowance of Z Crystals. Raphael Mayer went against the grain by using altered form Giratina on a bulky team alongside Solgaleo, Incineroar, Tapu Lele, Comfey, and Milotic to take top 8 at the Ecuador Regionals. As you might expect from the altered form, this Giratina played more into its defensive aspects, which honestly aren't bad. Tailwind and Will-O-Wisp are a nice utility combo, but as players optimize the meta and move towards the stronger meta picks, Giratina steadily fell out of favor again. again, especially with Incineroar being immune to Will-O-Wisp. Once the primals were allowed, Giratina was summarily banished again to its realm of the weird, where it probably doesn't really care at all about its low usage, because it has upside down waterfalls to entertain it. And that's it. So how good was Giratina actually? Well, it was never a big, flashy uber like Mewtwo, Kyogre, or Arceus, but for Origin Giratina, due to its excellent stats, typing, and move pool, as well as Levitate, it has been an absolutely crucial part of every Uber's metagame since its introduction. Altered Giratina was more niche, but when it comes to pure walling ability, there's nothing better, and that's why it anchored the bulkiest stall teams around. Basically, Giratina was overall solid through and through. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Giratina? Would you want a way to make Altered form a little bit more common than Origin form? Or do you like things the way they are? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. And of course, thank you to our patrons for continued support.